Here we've got a short video about how to simplify complex fractions. So as we look at this first one, we have a complex fraction, which really just means it's a fraction within another fraction. See, our numerator is a fraction and our denominator is a fraction. And so in order to simplify this, what we're going to do is we are just going to flip the second and multiply. In other words, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I took this fraction that we're dividing by, and I got its reciprocal right there, and we're going to multiply straight across. It's the same way you divide regular fractions. As I do this, there's some things I can simplify. We know that 3 over 3 divides to 1. We know that x over x divides to 1. And so what you're left with is 7/4. So this big complex fraction simplifies to 7/4. On our next example, we're doing the same thing, but what we want to do here is you can see that our numerator is made up of two different fractions and our denominator is made up of two different fractions. So what you want to do first is I want to rewrite this numerator as a single fraction, and then I want to rewrite this denominator as a single fraction. So I do realize that our difficulty level really spiked there from example 1 to this, but we can do this. So I'm going to kind of come up here and work on the numerator in itself. So if I have 1 over 4x plus 1/8, we need to get a common denominator in order to combine these into a single fraction. And so to find the common denominator, the fancy way of saying it is it's going to be the least common multiple of my denominators. Meaning, I know that this fraction over here needs to have an 8 in it, so I can multiply it by 2 over 2, because when you multiply by anything over itself, that's just multiplying by 1. Over here, this fraction needs an x in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply it by x over x. And so what we create here is I create 2 over 8x plus 1x over 8x, and that will simplify further to becoming 2 plus 1x all over 8x. I just took those numerators and wrote them over a single denominator of 8x. Now, I'm going to come down here below, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to play the same game with our denominator. So I have 1/4 plus 1/2 x. Well, I know that this fraction over here is going to need an x in it, in the denominator, and this fraction over here needs a 4, so I'm going to multiply it by 2 over 2. By doing that, I create 1x over 4x plus 2 over 4x, which now can be rewritten into a single 1x plus 2 all over 4x. That became this. So to zoom out and go big picture, we've taken our numerator and we've rewritten it as this. We've taken our denominator and we've rewritten it as this. And so I've just copied our new numerator to here and our new denominator to here, and now we're going to do it just like the previous problem. I'm going to flip the second and multiply. So if I have my 2 plus 1x all over 8x, we're going to multiply that by 4x over 1x plus 2. Okay? Now, we can do a little bit of simplifying. Actually, we can do a lot of bit of simplifying before we go anywhere. If I take this 2 plus 1x right there and rewrite it in a different order, you can see that we actually have the same thing there and there. So that divided by itself is 1, x over x is 1, and then we're just left with 4 over 8, which is 1/2. So that's our final answer to this problem. This big complicated fraction simplifies to 1/2. Here's our last example, and it's probably the most difficult of all. This one doesn't have a fraction in the numerator and in the denominator. All right, right here we don't have the fraction or denominator, but we got two fractions in the numerator, so we want to rewrite this as a single fraction. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to figure out what do we need for these to have the same denominator. And you can't just add plus w and plus w. You can't add a number to the numerator and denominator and keep the fraction equivalent. You can play with that with normal numbers. If I took 2/3 and add 5 to the numerator and denominator, you don't end up with a fraction equal to 2/3. So we have to multiply. So what you're going to multiply by is we're going to multiply by x plus w over x plus w, because it's our form of 1. And then over here you're going to multiply by x over x. And we're creating a denominator of x times x plus w. And then I'm going to rewrite that as a single fraction. So we have 3x minus 3 x plus w over x times x plus w. Now keep in mind, all this is still our numerator. We can't forget to divide by w at the end, but I think we can simplify this a little bit further. If I take this negative 3 and I distribute it in, we're going to end up with this, 3x I basically took this 3 and distributed it right there to create these two terms. And the reason that's nice is now 3x minus 3x is 0. And now we're here. So our entire numerator simplified to this. And so what we're doing here is now I've kind of copied over what we have. Here's our simplified numerator. It's all over w. If you're not sure what to do or how to divide this, think about if it's a w over 1 in the denominator, because anything is really that over 1. So if I wanted to actually divide, I could flip the second and multiply. And now we're here. We did all that work, and we see that the w's would divide to 1, and then when you multiply straight across, you're left with your final answer, which is negative 3 over x times x plus w.